So, welcome everybody. Wow, we are here. Yay, yay, yay. I'm so excited about this. And I'm so happy to see all your joyful faces. It's just I can't what's the word? Quelling. I'm just quelling. I'm
Verklempt.
so excited. Yeah. So we're here to the first official reading for Manna Song, Stories of Jewish Culture and Heritage. Yay. And I'm a little nervous, so I hope you don't mind if I wrote some things down if I read it, okay? All right. We have a big group here today. We do. And lots of readers. So I'm not going to take a lot of your time. You're not here to hear me. We're here for Mana Song, Stories of Jewish Culture and Heritage, which was the brainchild of our wonderful publisher, Ariana D. Den Blaker. She's the woman behind ELJ Editions. Ariana, who is not Jewish, approached me about 2.5 years ago, right when I finished editing my first anthology with ELJ Editions called Awakening Stories of Body and Consciousness. She told me how much she appreciated Jewish culture and history and asked me if I would be willing to edit an anthology for ELJ Editions about Jewish culture and heritage. Of course, I said yes, all caps. Yay, yay, yay. And um, I'm sorry. I just keep getting, is it record? I just have to check. Okay. I just had to check because I keep is anyone else seeing pop-ups
No.
of people requesting to record? Okay. It's distracting. I will just ignore them. All right. So Ariana even thought of the title, Mana Songs, because she believes, like I do, and I think everybody here believes that our stories are our sustenance. They nurture us. They ground us when we're wandering in the desert. And they keep us tethered to our traditions and our history and our ancestors. So the title I think is just perfect as well. Um, okay. Now she asked me before October 7th, and when October 7th happened, the project shifted a little bit. We decided to make a clear statement that this was not, Mana Songs was not going to be an anthology that centered political views. As we all know, it's very easy to find places to shout your opinion out. And this is not what we wanted this book to be. We felt more than ever that it was the time and it is the time to celebrate Jewish joy. So, what is Jewish joy? It's really, really complicated. And we have put together a gorgeous anthology of 32 powerful voices who share what Jewish joy means to them. Some of these stories on the surface do not appear very joyful. But even through our darkest hours, we are here. We will continue to be here, and we will continue to tell our Jewish stories and sing our Jewish songs. Um, so tonight we're going to be hearing from 11 of the 32 contributors whose stories are represented in the anthology. We're going to have 3 more readings, so sign up so you can hear everybody. I have to tell you, when I put out the sub call for this anthology, I wasn't sure what I was going to get, but I was just blown away with the quality of the writing and the heart and the variety of stories I'm so proud of this collection and so proud of all of you contributors and again thank you everybody who's here to listen. Okay. Um, I also want to give a shout out to Erica Dreyfus, yay, who wrote an amazing forward. Erica, we are grateful. So Thank you, Ariana, ELJ, Erica, and all the folks who wrote advance words of praise. Check out the blurbs we got. Oh, they're so moving. Thanks to all of you gorgeous contributors, and thanks to everyone here who loves them. We're going to move through the stories in the order they appear in the book. There's just one exception. Matthew Lippman, who has the first essay in the book, has to come in late, so he will be here hopefully soon. But we're going to have him, instead of opening, closing the readings out. On one more note, for the sake of time, I've asked contributors to read excerpts from their essays. If you want to get the whole shebang, which I highly recommend that you do, please consider ordering a copy. And I think there are links to the order. The order link is in the chat. Okay. So let's get started, okay? Our first reader tonight is Elisa Martin, who not only has a fabulous story to share, but is the artist whose work is on this cover. Is this not gorgeous? Yeah. Thank you, Elisa, for that.
Yeah.
And I think this cover like just speaks of joy, right? So it really sets the tone on the outside for everything inside. Elisa Martin is a Los Angeles-based Judaica and nature artist, known for her mastery of oil on canvas and her signature technique, blending abstract fluid acrylic with realism on wood panels finished with resin. Her work reflects a deep spiritual connection, often weaving biblical passages into scenes of nature and Jewish life. Beyond creating, Elisa has guided hundreds of students in the Jewish community through art instruction. However, her greatest fulfillment comes from seeing collectors form a personal bond with her work, making it a meaningful part of their homes. Her artwork is now cherished in private collections worldwide. So, Elisa, we're going to learn how she came to art in her beautiful essay and what it means to her. Go ahead, Elisa, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. Okay, so my story is called My Art, My Song, My Prayer. Though naturally artistic, my grandfather never had the opportunity to pursue his talent. Yet he passed the art gene to my father and his sisters, all of whom displayed remarkable creativity. On my mother's side, the journey was vastly different, but no less formative. Her Sephardic roots trace back to the Spanish Inquisition, where our ancestor, Don Abraham Senor Coronel, served as an advisor to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Despite his position in the royal court, the expulsion of the Jews forced the family to flee. A remnant of their home still stands in Segovia, Spain, now a museum. Don Abraham is said to have funded Christopher Columbus, a Jew secretly fleeing persecution. But my ancestors moved on to Turkey, Syria, and eventually Egypt, where my mother was born. In 1956, when Nasser rose to power, Jews were no longer welcome in Egypt. My mother's family spent months in a refugee camp in Italy before being relocated to a tiny two-bedroom apartment in Rio de Janeiro, where 7 people awaited U.S. visas for 10 years. It was in Brazil that my mother discovered her artistic gift. Using discarded chalk left behind by school children, she began to carve and draw, unknowingly launching a lifelong passion for sculpture. Later, after settling in California, my grandmother also began to paint, leaving us with beautiful works to treasure. I grew up knowing of the hardships my family endured, but no one spoke much about art. Was art something that could only thrive when life's storms had calmed? I am reminded of our Jewish ancestors' artistic endeavor in the desert after surviving our first great storm. When our people were freed from Egypt, they built the Mishkan. Despite their lack of formal training, their artistry in weaving tapestries, crafting the menorah, and gilding the ark was breathtaking because it came from the heart, an outpouring of gratitude to God. I believe God grants each of us unique gifts, and one day we will stand before Him to account for how we use them. Yet, how many of us remain unaware of these gifts or let them lay dormant? I'm so grateful I discovered mine. Growing up, I struggled to find my place. My school didn't offer art classes, and my dyslexia and other learning challenges often left me feeling lost. I doodled incessantly in notebooks, on walls, and even on my clothing, but my artistic endeavors were dismissed as a waste of time, more vandalism than creativity. By the time I reached college, I had nearly forgotten I once had a dream of becoming an artist. Life progressed, and that dream faded into the background. I embraced my roles as wife and mother, finding fulfillment and nurturing my family. Creativity peeked through in small ways, teaching children, cooking elaborate meals, but the artist within me seemed to slip further away. While I thought my chance had passed, I wanted to give my children the opportunity to express themselves freely, freely through art, something I was never allowed to do. As soon as they were able, I enrolled my girls in art classes. I was so proud of their paintings. We always framed and hung them up in our home. When I would pick up my girls after class, the teacher would always ask me, "When are you going to start painting?" Although she planted that seed, the idea felt selfish. Could I really paint for myself? Everyone had always said no. Finally, I mustered the courage and asked if I could join the class. When I sat beside my 12-year-old daughter, a spark reignited within me. I felt like I was stepping into a vibrant, sacred world. Everywhere I looked, I saw God in the intricate veins of leaves, the curves of a branch, the endless sky, and even the chaos of my laundry pile, which seemed to multiply like manna from heaven. My first painting was of a man praying at the Kotel, inscribed with the words Hodul Hashem ki tov, ki le'olam chesed. Give thanks to God, for he is good. His kindness is eternal. I was overwhelmed with gratitude for the ability to create, to see the world with wonder, and to connect with God through my art. I often found myself inspired by biblical passages, particularly Psalms, weaving them into my paintings. I was always a little introverted, more internal by nature, but as I continued on this path, the paint became my voice, the easel, my stage, the brushes, my song. My art has become more than an artistic expression. It is a form of prayer, a way to honor the beauty of creation and the resilience of those who came before me. Like my ancestors, I strive to craft something meaningful, reflecting the gifts God has given me. Through every brushstroke and every color, I feel a profound connection to Him and gratitude for the blessings in both the mundane and the miraculous. Everything our Jewish ancestors did for God formed a root character trait within us, lying dormant, waiting to be awakened to serve Him. My sincere hope is that when people see my art, the godly spark within them is ignited.
Thanks so much, Elisa. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so next in line is Lynn Gladner. Lynn Gladner is the award-winning author of 12 best-selling books, including 2 poetry collections, 3 novels, and 7 nonfiction books. A mother of 4 young adults based in Detroit, Lynn was a journalist in New York and Washington, D.C., and has been the CEO of a marketing company since 2007. Her author brand focuses on creating compelling, strong Jewish characters and emotional stories with universal appeal. She is at work on her 4th novel, and you can learn more about Lynn at lynngaladner.com. So Lynn's going to read her beautiful words, and I have a promise for everybody here. You will never look at coffee in the same way again.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much. This is called Identity in My Daily Cup. The crystals swirl in hot water, little bubbles foaming on the surface. I add some milk and gulp it down while it's warm. I never finish a whole cup, but memories bubble up in the brew, which is why I keep buying the red can from a dusty grocery shelf, half a world away from where it was made. No one in my house drinks the same coffee as I do. Elite, brand, instant, straight from Israel. I drink it not for the taste, but for the memory. Did I really want that cup of instant coffee when I was young and in Israel for the first time? I was a journalist at a weekly newspaper brought to the Jewish state by Sar El, Volunteers for Israel, to write articles about their program of putting tourists on army bases to build a connection with land and legacy. 2 weeks of twisting wires on the Golan Heights to help gird bunkers for soldiers. I slept in a dank barracks with 4 others, where the wind howled at night and a coal stove burned smelly in the corner of the room. The shower was a spigot with cold water raining down, and I endured it all because I was young and adventurous. One Shabbat I spent in the Old City, in a hostel for single young women who were playing with the idea of becoming religious. It was there that I drank Elite for the first time. A metal urn sat on a folding table in the lobby, a can of Elite instant coffee beside it, with styrofoam cups and plastic spoons, and powdery artificial creamer and a small cup of sugar. I swirled the brown crystals into the hot water. Bitter and strong, this particular coffee sat on kitchen shelves in most Israeli homes, but few people drank it. By sipping local coffee, I believed I could taste the sweat of my ancestors and the dust of this hard-won land that accepted me exactly as I am. You like that? A young woman asked. She wore a skirt to the floor and long sleeves, simple gold earrings, and no makeup. I nodded. The taste reminded me of quiet nights and whispered prayers, things I'd learned in the homes of strangers who followed the rules of the religious and invited me to try. A woman who tugged at her long brown wig and held a baby on her lap while 4 older children ran around the table and her husband chanted the blessings. A rabbi's wife who danced with the Torah in her arms as if it were a precious child, eyes closed, her body humming with the spirit of tradition. We lit tea lights, waving the flame toward us and singing the prayer aloud, familiar from childhood Fridays with my grandparents. Then we walked quick along stone alleyways, a human river rushing down steep steps to the western wall as the sun sank low and the night glimmered. The young women from the hostel were newly religious and excited about bringing more of us into the fold. Their skirts swept against the cold stones. Israel and religion was a different kind of home for me, a place I belonged the first time I stepped on the dry, fragrant earth. And the scent of that coffee, chestnut and soil, like the forest floor itself, was another kind of homecoming. At the hostel, I slept on a creaky bunk bed in a dormitory room with 5 other women on the second floor of an old stone building. The walls were cold, but the rooms warm with the flurry of conversation. The mattress was thin, and the springs groaned under my body as I shifted in the night. The next day, I ate sweet, sticky Yerushalmi kugel in the home of an old rabbi. His disciples bragged that it was the old man who made the kugel, not his wife. It went down easy. Relegated to a side room with the women, I leaned toward the rabbi's voice, straining for familiar words in his Hebrew sermon. The coffee was everywhere, hot and ready, a constant flavor at every table. Eventually, I embraced orthodoxy, but I only stayed in that world for 10 years. Still, I love stopping for Shabbat, halting all doing, no running here and there, a day away from checking items off my ever-long list. I no longer stay up late on Thursdays to cook, but I still invite people to my Friday table to sit long in quiet conversation and sing the words of our souls. Shabbat taught me to notice, to listen well, to see the lavender fingers of evening groping toward the night, to pay attention to words and find meaning that resonates over time. Good-natured debate over coffee and cake, singing full-throated and resonant, like bells in a walled city, palms pounding the fine wood of my table, reverberations felt by everyone around it. I've been buying Elite instant coffee for more than 30 years. A few stores in my town carry it, but often I order 3 cans at a time direct from Israel. I drink more tea than coffee these days, but when I find the need to reconnect with my soul, I pull out that red can, stir 2 teaspoonfuls into hot water, and watch the memories foam.
Wow. Wow.
Beautiful, Lynn. You took us right there with you. Thank you. Okay. Adrian Dern is next.
Yes.
Adrian Dern found new meaning in retirement.
Adrian now, honey.
What? Oh, can everybody else mute? Okay. I'll start again. Adrian Dern found new meaning in retirement following a gratifying career in nonprofits. She has spent her adult life in the Washington, D.C. area, enjoying all that it has to offer, from the splendor of Great Falls Park to the abundance of art, theater, music, and dance. Adrian welcomed an invitation to join a friend's writing group in 2017 and began to explore her world through personal essays. In September 2019, she self-published a collection of her essays in Shadows and Reflections, Thoughts on the Light and Dark Stuff of Life. And we're going to walk with Adrian as she revisits Philip Roth and Fiddler on the Roof and comes to terms with her Judaism.
Thank you, Diane, and so nice to see everybody. This is called Pass the Peas. The message was loud, if not clear. From my parents' perspective, our family's Jewish identity was essential to who we were. It evoked both pride and fear, but the missing piece, never fully articulated, was the why. I hadn't given this much thought in a long time. There was no reason to. But something called me to read Philip Roth's The Plot Against America, and it began to unearth what lay beneath the surface. I wasn't prepared for it. Published in 2004, the story goes like this. It's 1940, and FDR loses what would have been his third term as president to Charles Lindbergh, an aviation hero and confirmed anti-Semite. Although a novel, the story carries the names of Roth's own family, including the narrator, a boy aged 7 to 9, named Philip Roth. The book rocked my world. The awareness of anti-Semitism sits front and center in the book, in my life, in the background. Even so, its impact was felt, starting with the imperative that one day I would marry a Jewish man. My high school friends and I headed to New York City, excited to see Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway. I was unprepared. As the story unfolds, Chava, the youngest of the 3 daughters, flouts tradition to marry the non-Jewish love of her life and is swiftly disowned. Was this to be my fate? My tears were unstoppable as we made our way to Chinatown for dinner, imagining my own future, cast aside by my parents. Of course, that didn't happen, and 5 years later, when I announced that I would marry Mark, the non-Jewish love of my life, my mother's initial response was this: I always knew you would marry someone just like your father. And her second comment, a question really, and one I thought was getting ahead of the situation, was this: how will you raise your children? That turned out to be a moot question, as we divorced 6.5 years later without progeny. But it underscored the message of sticking with the clan. Ironically, I'd venture to say that my parents preferred Mark to my second husband, who was Jewish. In 5th grade, our teacher sent us home with a question. Where was our family from? Seemed simple enough, but it wasn't. Again, my mother. We're Jewish, so we're American. I was ashamed to arrive without an answer like Italy or Ireland. Although we never hid our Jewish identity, it must have been that Poland or Russia felt potentially dangerous, identifying us as a family whose ancestors were Jews forced to flee Eastern Europe. That may explain why my paternal grandfather, my only grandparent born outside the U.S., changed the family name from Dereshchinsky to Dern when my dad was in utero. Beyond the Jewish elements of his story, reading Roth helped me understand the absence of deep discussion on any subject in my family. I laughed when I recently heard the actress Allison Janney describe dinner table conversation in her family this way, pass the peas. So relatable. But then I wondered, at what cost? I'm not here to blame my parents, but to try to understand what this could have meant in my life. Is this why I often take things at face value? Could I have become a more critical thinker? If I had had children, would I have done any better? What else weren't we talking about? These are questions that haunt me now, but there are many others I didn't know I needed answers to before reading Roth's book. If I could have asked them before cancer and Alzheimer's claimed their lives, what would they have told me about the Jewish part of our story? And what difference would it have made? While these questions linger, they don't diminish the pleasure I take in embracing my identity as a Jewish woman. I happily recall and occasionally use Yiddish expressions, including some that are suspect, invented, I believe, by my dad. Celebrating Passover, marking Rosh Hashanah, and breaking the Yom Kippur fast with friends is a delight. On Passover, I get a kick out of Gentile guests who quietly pass on the gefilte fish when it's offered, while happily devouring more familiar food like brisket and noodle kugel. And a special shout out to matzo ball soup. It heals what ails any day of the year. And let's not forget the fun of Jewish geography. I recently shook with delight as I pieced together a connection between my first cousin who lives in Maine and my local tech guru who lives in Silver Spring, Maryland, all thanks to Jersey City. Being Jewish can be complicated, but finding the pleasures offered by connection, language, food, and the intangible aspects of being part of this particular tribe are reasons enough to celebrate my Jewish identity. We get each other's jokes. There are things we don't have to explain. We know each other in our bones. So I take a seat at my kitchen table to share a plate of ruggel or mandel bread alongside friends with names like Rabinovich, Schoenfeld, and Goldberg. As I do, I thank Philip Roth for pushing me to more deeply consider the complexity of my Jewish heritage, from the denials and fears of my childhood to the appreciation of what being Jewish means to me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, everybody.
Okay. Lisa Grunberger. Lisa Grunberger has a doctorate from the University of Chicago Divinity School and has been called a Jewish yoga rabbi. She's a Pushcart nominee, a Temple University professor, and a first-generation American. For the Future of Girls was nominated for an Eric Hoffer Independent Book Award. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, the Southern Review, Roots Quarterly, The Baffler, the Jewish Literary Journal. Her play, Almost Pregnant, is published by Next Stage Press. Her memoir in progress is Me and My Makers, a memoir of genes, adoption, and love. She's a yoga therapist and facilitates mindfulness infertility retreats internationally. Schmooze. Schmooze with Lisa at lisagrunberger.com. I love that. I love that so much. Okay, Lisa, you're muted.
I see that. Gosh,
Okay.
University of Chicago, soon not to have the humanities. Okay. Thank you.
I just want to say we're going to be treated to an essay that contains multitudes, right?
Yay. This
Yeah.
is an excerpt from Turn It and Turn It Again. It's so great to be amongst all of this Yiddishkeit. I'm going to get verklempt. And thank you, Diane, and the press too. Really, it's an honor to be here with all of you, beautiful punams. Okay. What if you find out you're not Jewish? My friend Christine asked me one afternoon when we were at the playground with our kids. I just told her I'd ordered a genealogy test to find my birth parents. Christine's Jewish question contains within it all the errors about adoption, inheritance, and Jewishness. It falsely assumes that to be Jewish runs through bloodlines. You're not really Jewish unless it's biological. If I'd found out my birth parents were not Jewish, then what? Is my Jewishness false? Like Barbara Streisand, fearing what will happen if I get a nose job and purchase a Goyish nose? Will I stop sounding like myself? People tell me you inherited your mother Rachel's gift for telling jokes. I'm obsessed with transmitting stories about my parents to my daughter, Rachel. I often tell her stories about my childhood, so she has a sense of her Safta Rachel and Opa Robert. Passover, circa 1982. Mom is sitting at the head of the table, all 5'1" of her, a dynamo of a woman, a combination of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Dr. Ruth Westheimer. A Jewish man goes into the synagogue and prays, "Oh Lord, you know of the mess I'm in. Please let me win the lottery." The next week, he's back again, complaining, "Lord, didn't you hear my prayer last week?" And it goes on and on. Suddenly, a booming voice sounds from the Shamayim, "Benny, be reasonable. Meet me halfway. Buy a lottery ticket." My mother's secret superpower was knowing how to live. Meet life halfway. Buy a lottery ticket. An ordinary life will happen. And during the course of an ordinary day, while you're at Macy's, say, inspecting the quality of a wool skirt by looking at its underside to see if it was double stitched, the ordinary takes on an extraordinary feeling. And thus, this extraordinary feeling of being with my mom at Macy's, where she's looking at the underside of a wool skirt, becomes a sacred place in my memory. And maybe this place is my sacred Jewish place, a place where one pays attention to the way things are made, a place where attention is paid. My father, Robert, probably never picked up a prayer book in his life, but he was the kindest man I've ever met. And how he cultivated his life, he was a chassid of the heart. I was shaped by his gentle goodness. Every time I pat my daughter's head or stroke the calico cat, I can feel my father's gentle hand. The way he touched the world lives inside me. I choose to call this a Jewish hand that caresses life. I asked my Jewish husband about his Jewishness. He told me the joke. Moshe traveled from his small Polish shtetl to the great city of Warsaw. While he was away for several months, his friend Chaim impatiently waited for him to return and tell what he saw. When Moshe finally returned, he told Chaim all the wonders he'd seen. Chaim, my friend, you'll never believe it, he enthused. In Warsaw, I met a Jew who owned a large factory. And I met a Jew who was a socialist and organized the unions. And I met a Jew who was a Zionist and argued that all Jews must unite, leave the exile, and move to Palestine. And I met a Jew who was deeply mystical and who said, trust in Hashem will provide. So knew Moshe Chaim said. What's so strange or surprising about that? Oh, Warsaw's a big city. No, no, Chaimele, you don't understand, Moshe exclaimed impatiently. It was the same Jew. Me too. I'm the same Jew. I contain Jewish multitudes. Jewish character isn't bound, it's fluid. What looks like a living paradox remains mysterious. The professional definers of Jewishness can promulgate about what is a Jew, what isn't a Jew, but in the lived, messy, spiritual, religious, and cultural life of Jews, we can't be reduced to any doctrine or halachic definitions. At my mother's funeral, I stood on the bima and told stories. Mommy, you are not flesh of my flesh, but neshama of my neshama. When I'd ask Mom, do you believe in God? She'd say, I believe in fate, but I'm not a fatalist. She was a Jew who loved a BLT, an Israeli who loved her adopted city of Manhattan, a mother who told me, keep a part of yourself for yourself alone, Lisa. I can still hear her belt out the Hatikva off key as she was terribly tone deaf. But her tikva wasn't tone deaf at all. It was insistently joyous. Life exists beyond neat definitions. Through all versions of me, I'm the same Jew who always recites the Shema before I fall asleep. So what of my Jewishness, Christine? What did the algorithmic tea leaves reveal about myself that I didn't already know deep in my Jewish neshama? The poet and songwriter Leonard Cohen wrote, anyone who says I'm not a Jew is not a Jew. I'm very sorry, but this decision is final. Let Cohen's response be my own. Yay, Leonard Cohen.
Seat of the heart.
Chassid of the heart.
Seat of the heart. Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Dina Ellenbogen. Dina Ellenbogen is author of the poetry collection Shore and Apples of the Earth, as well as the memoir Drawn from Water, an American poet, an Ethiopian family, and Israeli story. She's received fellowships from the Illinois Art Council and the Ragdale Foundation. Her work has appeared in anthologies and magazines, including Fury, City of the Big Shoulders, Beyond Lament, Lit Hub, Bellevue Literary Review, Brevity, Prairie Schooner, December, Woventail Press, Cimarron Review, Patterson Literary Review, Connecticut River Review, New City, Chicago, and other venues. She has an MFA in poetry from the Iowa Writers Workshop and teaches creative writing at the University of Chicago Writers Workshop. You could find her at dinaellenbogen.com. And Dina's going to tell us when a set of china is more than just a set of china.
Thank you, Diane, and wonderful hearing all of you. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to be skipping around a lot, but hopefully it will all come together in the end. What we carry. My grandfather Saul, imprisoned in Russia for socialist activities in the early 1900s, carried my grandma Ida's Passover dishes from the basement up the narrow steps of their tiny Chicago apartment. My grandmother kept a strictly kosher home, Saul, 10 years her senior, believed that religion only separated people from each other. He carried them anyway, a labor that expressed his love for his wife. Until she was 15, Ida lived in a Russian shtetl, a world of poverty and shared rituals. In America, to feel a sense of belonging, Ida made kosher meals from scratch and separated her dishes between dairy and meat. On Passover, her kitchen was as kosher as those of her Orthodox neighbors. Her china was made in occupied Japan during World War II, the war Ida's 3 sons had fought in. Ida's youngest son, my father Gil, has lived a century, now in a condo outside of Chicago. His biggest ailment is his hearing, destroyed when he was a flight engineer who dropped bombs on Nazi Germany. When his memory begins to fail more, and when he dies, he will take with him these remnants of history. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs believes we pass on history through story. So this fragment of story, this act of koshering the kitchen so strictly on Passover, is the history Ida passed on to my father that he later passed on to me. Maybe we pass down history not only through what we carry, but how we carry. Do we carry dishes, rituals, laws, and ethics as burdens? Or is our carrying more like a dance or a song, a gift of belonging to something larger than ourselves? And the shtetl was kashrut, the quiet, even subversive way that Jews expressed their identity under persecution. Was there no place for joy? Ida's father was a cantor, so there was once song and prayer. Ida didn't bring to America her father's way of praying. She sang Russian songs with her sisters, spoke Yiddish to keep secrets, but she never learned to pray in Hebrew. I imagine she never felt like she fully belonged to any language or country. I've carried boxes of kosher dishes up the steps of my college and young adult apartment, and now up the steps of the home I share with my family. I've scrubbed my counters until they sparkled like Ida's kitchen. While carrying my traditions, I've also found joy in the communities of like-minded Jews I met in college and graduate school, and the kosher Shabbat dinners we shared, and in the literary and social action communities I've belonged to. I discovered this joyful belonging most profoundly during the years I spent in Israel. There was the awe I felt as the peace of Shabbat descended on Jerusalem, the warmth I experienced hearing Shalom Aleichem, the prayer calling the angels to visit for the Sabbath as it floated through the open windows from one home to the next in the northern town of Ma'alot. My understanding of the diversity of Jews also expanded as I sat at my Sephardic neighbor's Passover table and did the sacred work of welcoming home to Israel Jews from Ethiopia. Our children's matzah covers and our homemade Haggadot grace our seders, even now that the kids are grown. My daughter, who is studying to be a cantor, has always brought music to every square foot of our home. When I think of how the hard work of cleaning for Passover and carrying our second-rate dishes sapped my energies to the point where I had no time left to plan the perfect Seder, I imagined being handed Ida's tattered box of dishes, a ragged sponge with which to sterilize counters and corners and shelves. While these tasks gave me a sense of belonging and continuity, sometimes they also became my Egypt. Last Pesach, we washed our rest of the year china twice in the dishwasher to purify it. Instead of carrying dishes from the basement, we carried my father up the porch steps to our table. He saw how the traditions his mother once carried on the boat or up the steps to her first apartment landed on our table differently, still creating a Jewish home. The dishes gleamed in daffodils from our garden-filled vases. Most importantly, we told the story of our exodus. My daughter taught us a new song that our voices carried to the tune of remembering, and sometimes to the tune of letting go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. And it's a beautiful tribute to your dad. Okay, Sandel Morse is next. Sandel Morse at sandelmorse.com is the author of the memoir, The Spiral Shell. A French village reveals its secrets of World War II. Morse's essay have been noted in the Best American Essay series, published in Creative Nonfiction, Plowshares, and the New England Review, among others. She has won the Michael Steinberg Essay Prize, been nominated for Best of the Net and 2 Pushcart Prizes. Morse has been a Tennessee Williams Scholar at the Sewanee Writers Conference, an Associate Artist at the Atlantic Center for the Creative Arts, a resident at Hunowick's Marble House Project, and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. And Sandell is going to take us on a Talit journey through generations.
So thank you, Diane. And I've loved listening to all of these stories. They're so wonderful. I have actually done some omitting of stuff in the text because I wanted to get to a natural stopping point. So I'm hoping that it will hang together as well. This is called Papa's Talit. Papa, my grandfather, stands in front of the bathroom sink as if it were an altar. He winds tefillin, phylacteries, around his forearm, hand, and head. On each of the 2 leather straps, a small box. Inside, verses from Exodus and Deuteronomy. Papa centers one box on his biceps, the other on his forehead. He is binding his heart and his mind to God. I am 11, and I have been watching Papa wind tefillin ever since I learned to toddle. He kisses each end of the collar of his talit, lifts the prayer shawl high, and brings it to rest on his head. He drapes an end over each arm. Now he prays, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu. I chant along inside my head, and the music of centuries moves inside my body. Papa bows over and over, as Orthodox men do, as if they are saying yes to what is holy. I have no idea what Papa is saying, and that's a good thing, because every morning when he prays, Papa thanks God that he was not born a woman. I also have no idea we are breaking a commandment that forbids worship in a toilet. The mirror over the sink reflects our faces, my blue-green eyes and curly light brown hair, Papa's soft brown eyes and gray comb-over. In the kitchen, water runs in the sink. My mother is filling the percolator. Upstairs, my father sleeps. In the bedroom Papa shares with Mama, I imagine Mama sitting at her dressing table. I love standing beside Papa these early mornings. Prayer, it seems, clears the air of my father's derision and disdain. He is a Reformed Jew. No mumbo jumbo for him. Mumbo jumbo is code for Hebrew. Mumbo jumbo is also racist, but I don't know that yet. My friend Carol is studying for her bat mitzvah and learning Hebrew. I want a bat mitzvah too. No, my father says, you're reformed. None of us says reform, which is correct. Please, I say, you heard me, my father says. I follow my father's path to assimilation. I am an on again, off again Jew. As a family, my husband, my 3 sons, and I light Hanukkah candles and invite guests to our Passover Seder. Once in a while, I attend a service at a synagogue. None of our sons becomes a bar mitzvah, sorry. Yet somehow my family absorbs the spirit of Judaism that Papa passed on to me. I am shopping for a talit. At 16, Rada, my granddaughter, will become a bat mitzvah. At 13, she memorized her Torah portion, but she could not tell anyone what the words meant. Meaning is essential to Jewish learning. In becoming a bat mitzvah, Reina is asking to join a community that has argued and interpreted this text for centuries. Inside Kolbo, a Judaica store in Brookline, Massachusetts, talitot are arranged according to fabric. I finger pure silk and remember the rough wool of Papa's talit and the braided strings that hang down. Rainer will wear an ivory dress. I hold up a cobalt blue talit with a hand painted scene of the heavenly city of Jerusalem along one border. She will love this. In a room adjacent to the sanctuary, Cantor Height wraps my granddaughter in her cobalt blue talit. Raina traces the outline of a golden dome and says, Grammy, it's unbelievably beautiful. She is unbelievably beautiful. Cantor Height recites the blessing for donning a talit, first in Hebrew, then in English. I latch on to three words: time, space, and holiness. I feel them all: the time of generations, the space of mystery, and the holiness of this moment.
Thank you so much, Sandel.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? You have to bring, if you, I want to see a picture of that Tali. I
Oh,
don't
you
know when
do?
I can, but I want to see that cobalt blue.
Okay, I will look through my photos and
Okay.
see what I can find.
Put it in the chat. All right.
Okay, well, can't do it right now. Maybe
Okay.
in another reading.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm not that good with searching for everything.
I hear you. Me too. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Talia
you.
Jankovitz. So I have your older bio. Do you want to announce your wonderful news?
Oh, thank you. Yes, my novel, The Very Unremarkable Life of Mrs. Etty Bloom, will be released June 15th, 2026. So very excited about that. It's a super Jewish book.
And it's fabulous.
Thank you.
I had the honor of reading an advanced reader copy. So I'm going to read your old bio.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Talia Jankowicz is an award-winning writer of poetry, essays, and fiction. Her poetry collection, Girl, Woman, Wife, Mother, Kelsey Books 2024, received first place in contemporary poetry in the 2024 Bookfest Awards. She holds her MFA in creative writing and resides in Chicago with her husband and 4 daughters. To read more of her work, you can visit her at taliajankovitz.com. And Talia's going to read about a beautiful Jewish tradition that her family made their own.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Thanks for editing this beautiful book. And I'm so privileged to be among so many talented writers. So very glad to be here tonight. Hachnasat Orchim. Hospitality is a mitzvah tracing back to one of the first Jewish forefathers, Abraham. A unique feature of Abraham's tent was its opening on all 4 sides. This was so that a traveler passing his home from any angle would not miss an opportunity for much needed food, shelter, or rest. Abraham was the first Jewish host with the most. His eagerness to welcome passersby into his home became the foundation of the Jewish value of hosting guests. So much so is this mentality embedded in the Jewish culture that it is even written into the Passover Haggadah. Let all who are hard-pressed come and eat. Let all who are in need come and share the Passover sacrifice. This was also a mantra of the 3rd century Babylonian sage Rav Huna, who is known to make this statement when he sat down to every meal. Let all who are in need come and eat. And this was a value and lifestyle approach my parents embodied in its most sincere form. Living in the Orthodox Jewish community of Los Angeles in the 80s to early 2000s, our family found itself in the heart of a neighborhood steadily expanding. It attracted observant newcomers seeking a reprieve from harsh East Coast winters, immigrants who landed in the city of angels, and a large number of local secular Jews curious about the observant lifestyle. A Jewish outreach program called the Jewish Learning Exchange, JLE, founded in 1980, was created to link all these individuals with hospitable community members. Somehow, a staff member at JLE connected with my parents and asked them if they would be willing to host various families and singles who needed meals for Shabbat or the Chagim. My mother, a Baal Tshuva who became observant of Orthodox Judaism at the age of 19, and my father, a firm from birth Jew from southern Memphis, and a child of Holocaust survivors, were more than happy to oblige. Many times in their single lives, they found themselves the recipients of the same kind of hospitality that was being asked of them. They felt a personal investment in a value that fostered their own relationship with Judaism. As a Baal Tshuva, my artist mother was excited to connect with people like herself, who grew up secular and were drawn to the beauty of Orthodox Judaism. And my father, a psychologist who grew up in a small town Jewish community, found the idea of growth and connectivity attractive. They remained the perfect duo for the task. Their combined religious and educational backgrounds provided a balanced approach to outreach, and their natural divide of domestic tasks resulted in a wholesome and inspiring Shabbat experience that left guests always asking to return. One big draw for our returning guests was my mother's cooking. My mother was a whiz in the kitchen. Her food was atypical for a Jewish housewife of the 80s. Despite her full-time job as an occupational therapist and raising 5 kids, her creative instincts made her ripe for turning out delectable dishes each week. Favorites like Moroccan fish, tagine chicken, moussaka, and scordalia, which graced our tables and delighted our guests. My father, sociable and outgoing with always cracking jokes, was also providing profound insights and explanations of the various customs, keeping visitors both laughing and reflective. His very traditional dress of a black suit, white shirt, and a black hat, and my mother's bohemian style of loose dresses and flowing skirts, along with her turban-wrapped hair, charmed guests from all walks of life. They felt they found a perfect marriage of tradition and authenticity, a yin to a yang, the true embodiment of my unlikely paired parents. These guests felt they found a place welcoming to all, and it was perhaps the precise reason JLE recruited my parents. The JLE program was founded on good intentions, which were often met with poor execution. This was long before the time of cell phones, when broken telephone was an actual real-life problem and not just a schoolyard game. Phone calls were made mid to late week with a vague reference of who would be joining us for a Shabbat dinner or lunch. Often, guests were only given my parents' name and address, and my parents were only given a number of guests to expect with little context. This faulty system resulted in uncomfortable and humorous situations. While my parents may be expecting a young couple for a Friday night dinner, a large family might have shown up instead for Shabbat lunch. Guests who spoke only a few words of English might have mistakenly arrived an hour early for a Friday night dinner, forcing my mother to break her tongue, trying to keep them entertained as we awaited my father to finally return from shul. Or perhaps no guests showed up at all, and we ate timidly, wondering if somewhere in the neighborhood our guests wandered looking for our home, or perhaps they mistakenly showed up to other unassuming hosts. We became pros at anticipating the unanticipated. Like an expert team of master nonverbal communicators, we solved each hosting challenge as it arose. We kids would read the high-pitched notes of our mother receiving guests at the door and do quick head counts, assessing how many extra place settings needed to be added to the table while my mother stalled at the door. My parents never wanted a guest to feel uncomfortable, so this quick fix was always done discreetly. After too many snafus, my parents devised a new plan. They got into the habit of setting an extra place at the table regardless of whether they committed to hosting guests or not. It became standard and natural that when setting our table, we automatically added an extra seat. This became our family tradition. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Talia. Boy, I would like to sit at that table. Okay, next up is Melissa Greenwood. Melissa Greenwood has an MFA in creative nonfiction writing from Antioch University, Los Angeles. She's been published in Brevity, the Los Angeles Review, the Los Angeles Review of Books, the Manifestation, Jewish Literary Journal, Longbridge Review, and elsewhere, including in ELJ's award-winning anthology, Awakening: Stories of Bodies and Consciousness. and in the journals that have nominated her for literary distinction. Meow Meow Pow Pow, Best Small Fiction, Kelp Journal, Best of the Net, and Goldman Review, the Pushcart Prize. Melissa piece is about her beloved grandfather, and he died after she submitted the piece, and she changed it to reflect his passing. So it's just a beautiful tribute to a special man. So Melissa?
Thank you so much, Diane. Yeah, what an honor. Truly, the timing was just really beautiful, and I'm just grateful to be able to share his story. This one's called A Toy Soldier Named Papa. A toy soldier sits on my kitchen windowsill, a dusty memento from my grandfather's 100th birthday party 3 Octobers ago. Appropriately, he's army green, 2 inches long by half an inch wide, legs akimbo, helmet on, and gun in hand. The figurine is the same size as my forearm tattoos and as hard as my delicate flower-themed ink is soft. It strikes me that, like Papa, my body art was born of hardness, from tiny rows and peony-shaped jabs by a mighty needle. For my grandpa, this harshness was the prick of the world. His earliest years included the loss of one sister to childhood illness and the backdrop of the Great Depression, both of which shaped him into a tough, scrappy kid who found himself enlisting. But no matter how many photos I've seen of him dressed smartly in his uniform, I can't reconcile the adoring grandfather I love with the young man he was, hard and ready for battle as this warring figurine. 2 Hanukkahs ago, when Papa was still strong, he gazed at me wistfully as though a century plus of life flashed before him. With the New York accent he tried but failed to disguise, he was chanting the blessings, but thinking, I imagine, about the blessing of family. His own younger face reflected back at him in each of ours. When a sentimental look washed over him, I knew he was not only reflecting backward, but also thinking forward, seeing present me, but imagining future me in a future he wouldn't live to see, remembering all of my firsts and wondering about his lasts. It's February now, and another Hanukkah has passed, but not Papa, not yet. Even after a decade of congestive heart failure, even after 3 back-to-back falls, even with 4 broken ribs and a fractured hip, Papa manages labored breaths through his wide open mouth, and I can't help but think of the phrase, soldiering on. My grandfather fought the Nazis. Of course he's fighting death. Beside the hospice bed to which he's now confined, an oxygen machine whirs and hums, and a vaporizer bubbles steam through an elephant tusk. In the next room, behind the kitchen's accordion doors, relatives eat leftovers off mismatched flatware, clink-clanking different sized and colored forks against a stack of tired dishes. Like Papa, the sounds of hospice care just keep going. The doorbell rings, another aid worker, another dose of liquid morphine. The phone rings, a rabbi, a well-wisher. I turn on the news to blot out the noise. It's day 492 of Israel at war, and flashing before me are the images of 3 recently released hostages, gaunt and emaciated as any we've seen. I'm startled by how much these hollow-cheeked, sunken-eyed men resemble my skeletal grandpa. Sarcopenia, they call it. Muscle wasting. 10 months ago, it was our faces on the news, Papa's and mine, when we were interviewed for a segment on this very war. I had just returned from a week of volunteering in Israel, a week made possible by his generosity when he slipped me some money for airfare, the way grandpas sometimes do. And Papa had his own unique perspective and worldview to share. While my voice kept catching as I spoke about wanting to be of service and feeling called to come forward, my mini version of enlisting, his voice was clear and strong, even on the topic of anti-Semitism. I fell apart that day, but my ever-resilient grandfather kept it together. Now, with his 103-year-old body failing him, he's the one falling apart. I jot down the following thought. Defying death and eradicating the oldest hatred in the world are both losing battles. Last Shabbat, my grandmother held Papa's swollen purple hand and said the Shema. Said, "We're all here, honey. It's okay. We'll be okay. We love you, Larry. It's time to go now, Larry. Just relax. Let go." And he did. He was wearing blue socks, and I was holding his sweet, flat foot in my hand as his soul made its ascent. Those flat feet could have excused Papa from service 83 years ago, but that's not who my grandfather was. He lived his Jewish values with those feet, walking through the world and no doubt into the next with exceptional integrity. This Shabbat, before I make my way to shul to say the Kaddish, I catch a glimpse of the toy soldier, a green speck behind the dancing Shabbos candles. I pick him up and stroke him gently the very way I rubbed Papa's tired feet. Thank you, I whisper to the figurine, as softly as Grandma whispered her last words to our real soldier, now finally at rest. Thank you for living to tuck away your rifle. Thank you for the legacy of your wonderfully wrinkled life. Thank you for being the brightest of Jewish lights. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Melissa. Beautiful. Okay, next, Rochelle Newman Carrasco. We're switching gears a bit here. Rochelle Newman Carrasco credits her love of culture, comedy, and community to her Lower East Side New York City roots. The co-author of Zigzag, a bilingual English-Spanish children's book, her essays have appeared in the New York Times, Lilith, The Forward, The Ethel, Off Assignment, The Independent, and more. She holds a BFA in theater from UC Irvine and an MFA writing from Antioch University, Los Angeles. She is currently querying a memoir based on her solo theater show, Hip Bones and Cool Whip. A pioneering voice in the field of inclusive marketing and advertising, she is known for leveraging strategy and storytelling. And all I'm going to say is one thing to everybody here. I dare you not to laugh. Okay. And cry, and cry, and
I'm still crying, still crying.
Jewish joy, right? It's a mix.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, publishers and everybody that's read, and thank you, Melissa. I'm gonna just dig right in. It's called Tell Me Another One. There once was a hua from Peru who filled her vagina with glue. She said with a grin, if they pay to get in, they'll pay to get out of there too. My grandmother giggled, pleased with herself. The Seder meal had ended, and the post-meal Haggadah reading, which my father did in both English and Hebrew, had not yet begun. It was a long night, and comic relief was always welcome. Tell another one, Nana, I begged. She was just getting started. My grandmother's repertoire of dirty jokes in both Yiddish and Lower East Side New York accented English was infamous. But my Catholic Panamanian-born boyfriend, Carlos, who would go on to become my husband, had yet to experience anything like this. There was a boy and a girl, and they were fucking. My grandmother launched into a joke with the precision and timing of a polished stand-up comic. I never learned Yiddish, but I also never grew tired of hearing her rattle off jokes I couldn't understand, but I could feel. The guttural and almost understandable phrases like "Wie geht's business?" and the almost edible consonant combos as in schlecht, zu legen, and nicht. As each joke resolved, she would break out into a contagious laugh, look me in the eye, and ask, "Verstehst? Understand?" And even though I didn't, I did. My mother could have learned my grandmother's jokes, but chose not to, or if she did know them, she kept that to herself. There was a tension in their relationship that kept the two women at odds. A joke-telling session, whether you're the comic or the audience, has a certain intimacy. Laughter is love, but my mother couldn't allow herself to be that vulnerable in front of her own mother. When my grandmother met Carlos, my aunt asked her what she thought. Well, she said before an extended pause, he's very tall. That, it turned out, was an endorsement. By not saying anything critical, by staying neutral to nice, she was giving her approval. My father had given Carlos a Spanish language Haggadah, his way of making sense of my out-of-religion relationship. At this point in time, my father had become more of a conservative Jew. The shift started when we moved to Los Angeles from New York when I was 14. Prior to that, my father had always been Orthodox, and my mother had always been resentful. It's like Reformed, only angrier. She didn't care who I dated, as long as I was happy. My father did care, but he knew he was on his own. Disowning me would mean divorcing my mother, and that never happened. Sophie and Irv go to the doctor. The examination room is divided in two with a sheet. Irv on one side, Sophie on the other. Irv shouts through the sheet, Sophie, the doctor wants to know if we have intercourse. If we what? Sophie shouts back, have intercourse. No, said Sophie, we got Blue Cross Blue Shield. The day my mother was on morphine at home, going in and out of consciousness, the first of the 3 days that ended in her death after a 14-year war with ovarian cancer. That was the first time I ever canceled a booked performance. I was supposed to do a stand-up comedy set at the Ice House in Pasadena, but being funny as your mother dies is a challenge I wasn't up to. My grandmother outlived my mother. She told no jokes in those final days. My mother would have preferred to be cremated, but out of respect for my father's beliefs, she was buried at Hillside Cemetery, the final resting place of Milton Berle, Jack Benny, Georgie Jessel, just to name a few funny men, some of my mother's favorites. A family set out on a road trip, but found themselves lost as the sun went down. Since there was nowhere to stop, the mother spotted a sign for a nudist colony on the side of the road and insisted they pull in and spend the night. The next morning, they decided to wander around a little. The mother and the little boy headed out, with Dad setting out a little later. Suddenly, his son runs up to him and says, Daddy, 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 why do some men have big ones while some men are very little? The father didn't know quite what to say. Then it came to him, well, my son, it's because the men with the big ones are very wealthy. The little ones are not. The son, seemingly satisfied by the answer, ran off again, only to return about 15 minutes later. Daddy, Daddy, yes, my son, there's a man talking to mommy, and he's growing richer and richer and richer. My mother never became a joke teller like her mother, but she did become a poet of sorts. After being given 2 years to live, she proved her doctors wrong. She found herself becoming a role model in her cancer support group, and among the poems she wrote there was one that ended, when I look at the word chemotherapy, I knew it would act salutarily and give me peace like no other, because there, in the middle of the word chemotherapy, I saw the word mother. Knowing laughter is love, I have come to understand I was raised with plenty of both. I never did learn to tell my grandmother's jokes the way she did. But when I laugh, when I tell a story, when I let humor and life intertwine, I know I am continuing that legacy, a joyful one. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
So wonderful.
We can't hear you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Jenna, I'm going to start again. Jenna Schwartz is a Jewish mother who wants to make sure you've eaten lately. Her work has appeared in Tikkun, Emerge Literary Journal, The Times of Israel, and On Being blogs. Cognoscenti, Jewish Writing Project, Sidura Lev Shalem, and the anthologies Calling Out, Psalms for Today, and On Being 40-ish, among other publications. Author of Fierce Encouragement, 201 Writing Prompts for Staying Grounded in Fragile Times, and 3 previous books. Jenna is a certified Jewish Studio Project creative facilitator and poet resident at the Jewish Community of Amherst. Subscribe to Dispatches from Daily Life at jennaschwartz.substack.com and visit her at jennaschwartz.com. And Jenna's going to read from her essay, A Beautiful Example of the Wisdom of Torah and the meaning it carries in our lives.
Thanks, Diane. And thank you, everyone. It's really amazing to get to be here among you all. This is called My Father's Blessings, My Mother's Stones, and it's a Dvar Torah. And I'm going to read the first 2/3 or so of it. Encountering Torah can feel like standing at the threshold of the ocean, vast and overwhelming, much like life itself. I find it helpful to pause before diving in, to feel the sand beneath us, the temperature of the water lapping over our feet. We might take in the wide horizon and feel awe, a little fear, a little wonder at all these depths contain, most of which we will never see. Then we can step forward, appreciating how amazing it is to experience even an inlet of these waters. This is how I invite us to enter Parshat Vayetze, slowly and mindfully. It may have oceanic potential and infinite meaning, but as with anything, we can only begin to understand it by choosing one focal point. As with any parsha, there is the visible story, and as with the ocean, the intricate ecosystems beneath the surface. I hope this Devar will result in something tangible to hold, as if bringing a shell or a stone with us from the shore. Vayetze opens with Jacob setting out on his journey from Beersheba and stopping to rest for a night. He takes a stone for a pillow, which doesn't sound very comfortable, but one imagines he's making do with what's available to him. He dreams his now famous dream about the ladder with messengers going up and down from heaven and the intergenerational blessing of home and abundance he receives from Adonai. Not only does God tell Jacob, Ani Adonai Elohei Avraham, Aveha, I am the God of your father Abraham's house. But according to Chizkuni, the commentaries of Rabbi Hezekiah ben Manoah, the very stone Jacob used as a pillow and later anointed with oil had been part of the altar on which his father Yitzhak had been bound on the occasion of the Akedah. Even before he begins to dream, Jacob is already subconsciously linking the stories between past and future generations. I question the word if in Jacob's acceptance of God's unconditional blessing. His vow to Adonai implies that he doesn't fully trust God to follow through. If God remains with me, protecting me on this journey that I'm making and giving me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and I return safe to my father's house, Adonai shall be my God. Despite Jacob's uncertainty, he anoints the stone with oil and renames the place where he slept Bethel, house of God. What can we make of this? The thing with dreams is that they're ethereal. They may leave us with a promise or even a vision of something so much bigger than ourselves, it's ungraspable. Jacob wakes up shaken by the dream. He seems genuinely surprised that he hadn't known before that God was in this place. Ma Nora Hamakom Hazeh, he exclaims, how awesome is this place? But he does something else. He pours oil on the very stone that was present on that fateful day for his father. Though Jacob leaves Bethel that day, the stone remains a marker of memory and a physical embodiment of God's blessing. I wonder if it also represents something else, an obligation. As I pondered the many meanings of this story, I found myself thinking about the bag of stones I'd been driving around with for months. Yes, I'd been driving around since that summer with a Ziploc bag of rocks in the trunk of my hybrid Corolla. More than once, I thought, I've got to write about this. There was something slightly absurd about it, yet I sensed a deeper meaning there. When I encountered this Parsha, suddenly I began to see why I'd been holding on to these stones. For one thing, I told my mom I would, and that was reason enough. You should know that I collected the stones from the porch of my parents' home of 40 years, which they recently sold. Starting at age 10, this was where I had many dreams, literal and figurative, about what blessings life might hold for me. Finding my way forth required much wandering, sometimes through fear itself. My path, like all of our paths, required faith. There were many years when I felt I was swimming in a vast ocean of becoming, with nothing to hold on to, not even a physical place to which I would return. What I did have, and what this story helps me see, was the blessing of my parents' enduring love and support. When it came time earlier this year to help them prepare to leave this home, my mom asked, "What about my rocks?" Her question didn't surprise me, as she was very attached to the stones she had placed around the edges of the side porch and the old Victorian barn. I knew leaving this place held grief and uncertainty for her. I said, "Mom, don't worry. We'll take these rocks and find a new home for them." "I've got an even better idea," she said, suggesting that we bring the stones to the plots at the Wildwood Cemetery, where she and my dad will eventually be buried. Suddenly, the stones had the potential to link past and future, becoming becoming symbols of the connection between Jacob's dream and the very descendants God promised him.
Beautiful, Jenna. Thank you. And now, Matthew Lippman. Matthew Lippman is the author of 8 poetry collections. Oh, okay. His latest collection, We Are All Sleeping With Our Sneakers On, 2024, is published by Four Way Books. His previous collection, Mesmerizingly Sadly Beautiful, 2020, is published by Four Way Books. It was the recipient of the 2018 Levi's Prize. In 2026, his collection, King of the Jews, will be published by Ben Yehuda Press. In 2027, his collection, Cry Baby Cry, will be published by Four Way Books. Matthew's going to read Hineni. It's which means I am here. Your trees and prayers and holding all of what life throws our way, which is a beautiful expression of Jewish joy. And his essay starts off the anthology, but it's also a lovely way to end this evening.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, everybody.
And I should ask everybody to mute because there's like everybody except Matthew. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Excuse me. This is Hineni. When I was in Rosh Hashanah services, everything got real quiet real quick. I sat in the sanctuary, left of the bima, and in front of me, floor to ceiling windows provided a view into the woods behind the holy house, giving me a front row seat not only to the rabbi, but to the exploding autumn leaves, yellow and orange and red and green and brown, the ecstatic death of autumn. It's a magical thing, and I found myself in a Marc Chagall dream. I found myself in a fantasy of taking off all my clothes, moving through the window osmotically and disappearing into the trees, being enveloped by the trees, a communion, a union, because God is not that elusive, because God is in everything, and because God is of everything, because God is here, present, in any type of prayer that is called prayer. Hineni, a sweetness in the expansion of self, so the self no longer exists. This Rosh Hashanah, the idea of disappearing into the world gave me great joy, and I wept because I was present. This is the joy of being a Jew for me, presence, and in the mode of paying attention, the absolute ability to feel sorrow and joy all at once in the silent contemplation of being. Haneni, don't mess with being, double Haneni. The self and not the self, that's all I wanted, to get swallowed up by the trees while the rabbi opened the ark, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and sitting there, all that happened was that I wept. I did not know why I wept, but it was everywhere and everything. During Aleinu, during the Amidah, when the shofar was ignited, everywhere in the service, the ecstatic joy came to me in an experience of tears. Is there a language enough to speak of such a thing, a phrase? If there is, I don't know what it is, but I believe this is why I dedicated my life to writing poems. It's the mystery of the inexplicable, of trying to discover it through words and never succeeding. Being a Jew is the sorrow and the joy, all at once, together, dancing. It's these two feelings embedded in one body, mind, and spirit. It's a constant fascination for me. It's the mystery of the unsayable that gives me the excitement and exuberant beauty of being a Jew. When I was a kid, my grandmother, Shirley, gave me the bagels and the lox. She gave me the menorah and the Hanukkah gift. When she moved to Florida, it was a card with a $20 bill stuck inside. Her kitchen smelled of kugel and sable. It smelled of brisket and sadness. She was not a very actualized woman, and us being a matriarch was her goal. If it was her goal, she was quite actualized. Her kitchen, whether on Ocean Avenue, Sheepshead Bay in Brooklyn, or Fort Lauderdale in Florida, was the holy space. I suppose this is an old story, this assimilation story. The high holidays always meant something, but they didn't really mean something, even though they were everything. They meant that you had to never forget you were a Jew, no matter how you experienced them. Shirley's high holidays, her Passover Seder's, her Purim, were always just about the food, the control of the food. There was so much joy in her kitchen soup, in her chicken soup, but there was so much salt that you couldn't help but be present. Haneni. Every Shabbat, after the chicken has been cooked, the candles placed, the sides deposited into their white ceramic bowls, I place the challah on its wooden board, and right before I cover it, my favorite part, I sprinkle the salt. The salt is my favorite part. To dip the sorrow, the difficulty, the pain. I do not mean to romanticize a history filled with horror that we Jews have endured. I used to believe that there was a beauty in suffering, a younger me. And I do understand this when I want to disappear into those Rosh Hashanah autumn leaves. As I get older, though, it bothers me. There is nothing you can do about the past but see it, name it, make poems and songs from it, so you can hopefully find joy in even the most difficult aspects of what has gone before. But really, was it all necessary in any shape or form? In synagogue, especially this year, I find myself in tears. I am always crying. I have no idea why. The hostages, October 7th, America, Moses, the Aleph, the Shofar. I don't know, and I really don't know. It's beyond me, and I welcome it because it feels good. And if feeling good is joy, not pleasure, something fleeting, then I am in, all the way in, Hineni. But it's a different Hineni. This is not the feeling I get or got in my grandmother's kitchen. It's not the feeling I got singing Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now at the hippie, progressive, mainly Jewish summer camp in Walk Hill, New York. It's not the feeling of living in New York as a kid, as a man in his 20s, knowing that the Jews were everywhere and that Brooklyn and Manhattan were home filled with my people. I always loved that. But it isn't and wasn't this. It was those trees. Hineni. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. This was such a beautiful evening. I was so moved by all your words again and again and again. For people who came to listen, thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember that the readers just read parts of their essay. You really want the whole thing. So you can look in the chat and order a copy or several for yourself and as gifts. We just want to spread this Jewish joy around as far and as wide as we can because Hineni, right, everybody? Hineni. And we are here. And thank you for being here tonight. Sending lots of love to all of